Hi everyone, and welcome to our Field Service Management event webinar that we're giving you here today, and a little sneak peek teaser of the main FSM show later in the year. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we're really excited to share with you some really key insights and strategies of how we can effectively develop our field service teams and our workflows where needed. So yeah, as a brief introduction to myself, my name is Marianne Gabriel, and I'm the Program Director of our Field Service Management series. So some of you may know me from such films as last year's virtual FSM conference, which we flipped to the same platform. And I can see a few new registrants as well. So thank you all for joining us today. Luckily, we do plan to run our FSM event later this year in person, so stay tuned and reach out to me for more info if you haven't already. But yeah, looking at today and the past, it's been an interesting journey these past few years when we talk, when we look at the field service space and the work that everyone's kind of undergone. So I guess the case is that whether you're in utilities, telecommunications, manufacturing, even more of the white-collar style roles like financial management, which I believe some of you are tuning from here today. The future of the field service is really quite reliant on how we can utilize digital transformation and customer experience as well to empower technicians to complete these tasks without delays. So yeah, in order to address this, today we're going to be looking at two key areas. So the first one is we're going to be going from SLA to servitization. So looking at the key metrics we need to take into account and how call center teams and field service teams can work together to make this a success, as well as digital advancements in asset management. So a massive thank you to our two speakers today on this webinar that you can hopefully see on the screen as well. Branko Kondic, National Sales Manager from Schindler Ahead, and Ivan Byrne from who is the head of asset management from Unity Water. So they're going to be presenting on those two the topics separately, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, throughout presentations, feel free to submit any questions you may have to Branko or Ivan. Q&A tab should be located in the bottom of your screen, so it should be just like under my face, hopefully. And also, if you have any technical difficulties, let me know through the Q&A tab. And so without further delay, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Branko Kondic. He's going to be presenting on going from SLA to servitization, the key metrics we need to look at to merge old and new operational processes. So we'll be discussing here how to refine our field service metrics to become more outcome-based for our future workforce and managers. So over to you, Branko.
Thank you, Marianne. And yeah, hello from Sydney, lockdown Sydney. I'm in sort of Campbelltown, which is God's country, so it's about 8 degrees here, and it's very, very cold. Just a few points. We've got a lot of topics to cover today, but happy to take sort of questions towards the end. And just a little bit about Schindler, who we are, what we do, and what sort of strategies we deploy from actually changing the way we go to the market, which is typically sort of boots on the ground and SLA type services, to providing value add to our customers. Schindler, we provide vertical transport systems. So for you guys, you probably know them as lifts, escalators, and sort of moving walks within sort of shopping centres. Our industry is actually quite interesting, like so many others. I mean, when you sort of turn on the PowerPoint or the light switch, you expect the lights to work. When you turn the water on, you expect the water to run. Same thing with lifts and vertical transports. I mean, you just expect them to work. And there's a lot of things in the background, in terms of maintenance and servicing and upgrades and things like that to keep things going. Schindler was founded back in 1874, so we've been around for a long time. And our markets are pretty much residential to premium sort of high-rise, a lot of the towers within Barangaroo, a lot of the premium sites within each of the capital cities. In Australia, so if you walk into a shopping centre or an airport or wherever it may be, you're probably stepping on one of our sort of lifts or escalators. We operate in about 140 countries across the globe, 60,000 employees and about 1,200 in Australia. And a key point there is, the bulk of those 1,200 people are service people. and sort of people supporting the people on the ground. I mean, we have a huge fleet of vertical transports in the market, and they're no different to like cars and other sort of moving sort of devices. They need to be serviced. There's intervals. You look at, high-rise, each of the doors need to be, looked at, sort of periodically. So we've got a lot of people moving around to support what we basically do. And, it's not just doing the same thing and getting the same results. It's how we can actually work smarter and add more value to our customers. And sort of key metric, we're moving over 1 billion people a day, and that was actually last year's sort of statistics, and probably a lot more this year. So quick snapshot in terms of Schindler, in terms of what are we doing from sort of changing our go-to-market strategy. And there's 2 points when you look at how do we sort of change, how do we impact sort of change. It's not just with our customers, which is a big part of it, but it's also internally. How do we actually manage change internally and externally, and take both teams and on the same journey. I just want to quickly define servitization. It's actually for us, it's actually providing value-adding service or supporting services that actually extend and supplement the relationship we have with our customers. And that's sort of really important. I think a lot of sort of manufacturers out there, or even sort of service providers, where you're providing sort of light bulbs or washing machines or utilities or cars. I mean, often the relationship stops there, and there could be some maintenance there. But how do you further extend the value? You may get some with your car dealership with servicing, but what that's done doesn't. What else can you add there? And I think by changing the way we engage with our customers and look at the total life cycle of what we're doing and how the customers are using our products, then we can only sort of provide more value to our customers, and we'll talk about that. One of the big things is that the Internet of Things, IoT, machine-to-machine collaboration, and it's not just one machine to another machine; it's a web of technology and hardware. And I use that sort of term, collaboration. It's really important, to basically work those technologies to work together to improve the outcome and the service modules that we provide to our customers. And I often sort of refer to Henry Ford quite regularly. I mean, the guy is amazing. He had a saying or a phrase for everything. He said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they probably would have said faster horses. This was back in the early sort of 1910s and 20s and around that time. So he took a very sort of futuristic view. If you ask his people, being both customers and staff, they just probably want more of the same, but quicker and faster and better. So we really have to break our standard. What are we looking at? How is it looking at? Where do we want to be as a business in 5, 10, 15, sort of 20 years? And that's said, Schindler have been around from 1874. Pretty much, providing the same services and products, and now we're at a point, where the technology is really allowing us to leap in terms of what we can actually do and change vertical transports from just a device to actually a new sort of dynamic out in the market. So, in terms of our sort of service-based strategy, or our service, or the traditional service-based strategy that manufacturers have within the vertical transport industry, they have the boots on the ground mentality. And I won't go too much into the details in this slide, but there's 2 parts here. One is top part, the traditional service management. You have the M's are the major visits. So you'll schedule them throughout the year. It's like your car. You do your oil, you do your brakes, you do this, you do that. So you need to do those activities. What typically happens? You have your inspection visit. No different to a car. You drive it in, they do a sort of quick check, and then you go. A lot of the times that we have with inspection visits, and sometimes even maintenance visits as well, you use the car analogy. You drive out and something happens, and then you actually got to go back, and then you've got to go service it. So that model does work to an extent, but there are some issues there. So with the digital services model, and that we're going to market with, and have gone quite successfully, is actually brought in the IoT facet of servicing vertical transports. So we'll still do the major visits. We'll go out there and do the heavy visits that we need to do. But we're removing the inspection visits that we periodically provide with IoT, remote monitoring capabilities. So a lot of the new vertical transports that are basically there have the capability to self-diagnose, in terms of issues. Are they working? Have they stopped? Have they sort of broken down? Are the buttons working? Are the lights working? All those key type of things. Are the doors slowing down? We can now sort of pick those things up sort of remotely and have 24/7 monitoring of that sort of vertical transport. So we know when there's an issue. So what that means for us is right time servicing. So rather than just going there for an inspection visit and sort of ticking the boxes and saying, yep, that works, that doesn't work, this is working, we now go out and actually service the lift or maintain the lift when the lift needs to be maintained. And that can be once, twice, 3, 4 times, 5 times a year. It could be a lot more times than we're going out now, but it's actually right time servicing for our customers to avoid any sort of breakdowns. From a trust perspective, I mean, we also provide, if customers are seeing us less because we're servicing the vertical transports a lot better, we do provide digital e-health checks. So we systematically now supplement a site visit with a electronic checklist that will check all various things, door speeds, button working, lights, and all those type of things, and send the customer a report every month. Your lift's travelled this many kilometres, this many floors, this is much brick and floor and things like that. So we're now sort of giving the customer a lot more information than we were providing previously on the boots on the ground model, and providing a lot more value to our sort of customers in terms of availability. It's really what they're after, and basically sort of getting more value out of their vertical transport systems. Some of the things that, we do need to go through is basically that whole sort of change management. And so bulk of the activity that we're looking at is not just taking our customers on a journey. That's one sort of facet as well. I mean, we've got to take our sort of teams on that journey as well. I mean, we are working in sort of changing times where customers are sort of demanding a lot more information. They can actually self-serve a lot quicker. They want to be more empowered. They don't want to talk to people. They want to basically be alerted on mobile apps and things when actually things occur. And, as I mentioned before, the trust factor there, people like to think you're doing something differently, you're taking away the value from services, but we've got to change that culture. We're actually doing a lot more. We're investing tens of millions of dollars globally on these sort of systems to provide, for the technology to enable us to interact with these lifts remotely, and not only get the issues management, but also dial in and remotely sort of work with those lifts. So, upgrade software remotely, over-the-air updates, reset faults over the air. When we look at the customer's perspective, everything has like a pendulum effect. Our customers are basically saying, this, I want these, I want this, and we've got to take our sort of teams on that sort of journey as well. That, their perceptions are, things are working. Why do we need to sort of change things? There's new systems. Do I need to learn new systems? The whole thing about transparency now, because with IoT services, it's not only our systems that are basically enabled, or basically have information in saying, what's actually occurring. Soon as that happens, our customers get the same information. So they're basically aware of what's going on and what's happening, and where is a service tech and how far is a service tech away from being delivered. So there's a lot more transparency as we actually go through this, and it just taking both parts of the business. The biggest things that we've gone through is that whole sort of change management process, and it's been a big journey, not only from a market perspective, but also internally. And when you'll see, it's been a lot of work to get to this certain point, but the outcomes have been sort of fantastic for what we're doing. So what I want to do, I've got three audio clips I want to play from our call center, where we've actually these vertical transports have the IoT or remote monitoring, predictive maintenance technologies already sort of built into them, and where the vertical transport has actually broken down or stopped for whatever reason, it automatically places a service call itself. A technician is actually dispatched, potentially with the right parts, to resolve the issue. Pretty much all our customers who are digitally connected on a portfolio do have access to a mobile app to be alerted to these activities we're providing in the background, but they're still not adopting them in terms of being using that technology to see what's actually happening. So with all the 3 video clips that, audio clips I'm going to sort of play now, the customers have had the ability to actually log into their app, or the app will send them a ping saying, hey, your lift stops, and your text on its way, and it's all going through. But what I want to basically draw your attention to is just how surprised these customers are that the lifts, are placing service calls. And I think one of them is that the second one is in a shopping centre where the lift broke down at 11 o'clock at night, and the lift placed a service call. It said there was a problem with the door. The guy went out there. Soon he jumped in his van. He saw he needed to go to that site, and he was out there when the store was opening at sort of 7 o'clock to this lift. So what I'll do, I'll just play these audio calls.
Deborah.
Hi, Deborah. I'd like to report a fault.
Yep, what's the address?
It is.
Yep. All right. What's the issue there this afternoon?
So I have left I, that is stuck on level 14 with the doors open.
Okay, so the remote monitoring has already logged it. Application is already on its way, and he will be there in about 25 minutes.
I am so satisfied with this call.
That is great. You'll get a text as soon as they arrive as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great afternoon.
All right, you too.
Bye. Deborah.
Hi, Deborah. I'd like to report a fault.
Yep, what's the address?
It is.
Yep. 1 second. All right. What's the issue there this afternoon?
So I have left I, that is stuck on level 14 with the doors open.
Okay, so the remote monitoring has already logged it. Our technician is already on his way, and he will be there in about 25 minutes, hopefully.
Wow, I am so satisfied with this call.
That is great. You'll get a text as soon as they arrive as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great afternoon.
All right, you too. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Stuart speaking.
Hi, Stuart, it's Sam. I'm just calling to log a call for our Elizabeth Street
Yes, there's already a job in for that one. There's already a job in for that one.
This morning?
The lift has raised a job itself. The lift has raised a job itself because it's got remote monitoring on it, so it's done a job.
Right.
So there's already a job in place.
That is amazing. Thank you so much. That's
and
great.
The tech will be there in 10 minutes. Okay, he's going to need to have 8:30.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you.
Catch ya.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 And the final audio.
Hello. Speaking.
Call centre for Schindler. How you going?
Good.
Not bad. I just saw an email come through, and we'll log the job for you for lift number 2, stuck on level 3 with doors opened.
Yes.
Okay, what I could do from my end is I connected to that unit. I moved the unit up and down, which is called a test strip on our end. And the doors open and close, and the lift looks like it's actually working. I was wondering if I can cancel the call just to save you an additional call-out fees.
I like this new technology you guys have got. It works.
It's working? Okay, all good. Just couldn't try and save you a call-out fee, that's all. So it's up and running, so I'll just cancel the call then.
All right, appreciate that.
All right,
so
thanks for that.
On the cube system now, is it?
Yeah, it's on the cube, so it comes up as whoever logged the call by email, then I get a notification saying that there's an issue. It looks like the lift's running, and I can perform a test strip, move it up and down, check if it's working, and then I'll give you a call back to see if we can cancel it.
All right, that's good. I like it.
Yeah, all good. Thanks for that, Adrian. See you, mate.
All right, thanks for the call.
Bye.
See you, mate.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Marianne, for correcting the audio. But I hope you got a feel in terms of what the expectation, the market expectation from our customers. That even though we're promoting this and we're engaging with customers, remote monitoring and predictive maintenance, the market is still need to be taken on a journey in terms of the awareness of what we're doing with sort of technology. And, it's not just the IoT, the front end of the machines being able to do their diagnostics and send reports. I mean, it's a whole back end to actually support the field services technicians as well in terms of, what do they need to do? How do they need to manage their days? And, we've got sort of tools out there, with their sort of mobile phones to basically schedule their work. And we call that adaptive services. So, they will now be provide a list of what is the next most important task or next most important activity that you need to do for our customers, rather than going through and looking through a list and thinking, okay, this is important, that's not important. The system will basically know based over sort of 5,000 rules that we get in the system, what is important, customers we need to go to and actually schedule that. And obviously there's some manual overrides there, but the system is doing bulk of the heavy lifting. As you would have seen in that sort of second example, the lift broke down at 11 o'clock and at night, and as soon as he jumped in his van, he basically knew which site to go to. He knew what the actual problem was. He had basically, when he went on site, he didn't have to diagnose it and went straight to that particular level to fix the issue, and he took the right parts that were there. So we're also asking our techs to, give us feedback on that system. Did the system work? What else could we have done? So we're going through that sort of whole sort of learning process, and that's a really big part of making this work, is actually getting to the right people at the right time to support our customers, which is changing the value. And we've seen the benefits from the technicians. So from a change management perspective, we've actually seen a significant improvement in time management, because they're not going. The system's smart enough to say, okay, if you're working in this particular area, and it'll actually adjust text routes to say, okay, you need to, after you finish there, you need to go there, and vice versa. So they're not having to navigate through traffic and go from one end of town to other end of town. The better planning and preparation, they just basically follow the bouncing ball, and they do what they need to do. They don't need to be sort of schedulers. They go out there and basically fix what was the next most important thing. Which focus on the task at hand, and really good from our perspective, as you can see with those audio clips. I mean, significantly improved customer relations. I mean, this is really sort of changing the dynamics of where we're going. We're adding more value to our customers with this whole sort of predictive, fix it before it breaks. A few of those others were breakdowns, but bulk of the time, we are fixing a lot of issues before they fail, and I'll show you that. So I'm very conscious of time. This is our digital service management, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, but we are sort of going through a sophisticated rules engine that we've actually developed. As of sort of the end of last year, we're getting 40 million messages a day coming through this process, and we're learning through that sort of system. So it's continually evolving, and the collaboration. Our customers are getting the information through their action board portal as through our sort of field link. So what are the value-adding services we're doing? We're basically less downtime. We've already sort of identified what the issues are there. As you've seen with the running on arrivals, I mean, there are, you call a mechanic to fix your car and your car's sort of working, there are going to be costs for the call-out fee, so we're reducing a lot of that. We also have the ability now to dial into lifts and actually recover lifts and get them going again. Bulk of the time, the lift doors are being forced open and they shut down. We can actually reset those flags remotely within 30 minutes of a lift stopping. And if you look in the real world, that can typically take about, 3 hours, 4 hours over the next day, to basically get to a lift. So we're doing that 60% of the time within sort of 30 minutes. Remote release of passengers is a really big thing. There's a lot of emotions involved there. And now, we've got typically service levels to release passengers within 30 minutes of being sort of trapped. Now, the quickest remote release after checking all the security features, the safety issues, talking to the passenger, checking all activities. We release a passenger the quickest we've done it so far is about 7 minutes from pressing the button to opening the door remotely. There's a whole bunch of activities that we're sort of providing in the background there. But it's not only the service activities, we're providing new services, because now, we do have a gateway. It actually is connected there. And how do we extend the relationship, and how do we see, the vertical transports being used in the future? I mean, we're now sort of putting digital media screens. The customers can upload content through their mobile phone, their cellular phones, in a secure, auditable type of environment using the existing sort of infrastructure. mobile apps to actually call lifts and see where lifts are, APIs into building management systems. So now, this honeycomb is actually growing and evolving of new services and new value-add activities that we're doing there. So, not only are customers acquiring a vertical transport from us, they're acquiring the servicing from us, they're providing other different sort of modules on there that's really specific to their needs, from their requirements. So there's a lot of sort of content there, but one of the things that was key is that technology, no matter even if you get the best technologies, the people you have behind the scenes to make that occur, that is really, really key. And we're at a point now. We started this. We actually started this journey sort of a couple of years ago, and sort of launched mid 2018. And as I say, we have well over 50% of our portfolio digitally connected, and being sort of monitored through this for our sort of IoT sort of strategy. There is value, as you can see with the audio calls, and also with our sort of growing sort of customer base. We have a longer relationship with our customers now, because they actually see, the last point, they see the evolution and where we're sort of going with the technology. It's not just same old. We are providing new things. So when you look at servitization, and when you basically have a look at the value we're providing to the customers, move just from providing the lift or in the shaft or the moving wharf to basically a support structure, and now to value-adding services that are different market. I think I'm basically pretty close to my time. Marianne?
Almost there. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and I know there was a lot of content. I've tried to, sort of machine gun a whole bunch of information with a short period of time, but I'm happy to take any questions.
So everyone, if there's any questions that you have for Branko either now or throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A tab just beneath our screen, so you will be able to see it on the platform. I did have a question actually, personally. So I'm quite it's really awesome to kind of hear around the work that the teams are doing, especially when we're talking around servitization and that customer experience. So sorry, we just got a question actually coming in. So I'll quickly ask my question and then I'll ask Andrew's. I'm sorry, I've become a bit awkward now. My question was, when we're talking around that customer experience piece, I mean, you can hear that there's quite a lot of great work that the contact center department is also doing, so working collaboratively on that sort of front. So do you kind of see a future where contact centers and field service teams, they work quite well together, but do you see a time when they might work under the same sort of department, or is there kind of a future there across the two different industries to coincide more closely?
Yeah, with the contact center, and I'm going to be a bit of an echo. So with the contact center and the field services, we've actually developed an intermediary department. It's called our technical operational center. So it basically has qualified lift technicians, been in the industry for 15, 20, sort of 30 years, sort of working on lifts actually remotely, and you're doing the updates. So we've actually developed a new team to actually assist the field guys. So typically, you have the guys doing software upgrades, doing software resets. I mean, a lot of the technology today is just about software as is hardware. So now we've actually got people in the office working remotely, dialing into the lifts, as I would, be standing in my car, plugging in my little device. All the error codes will come through, and then I can make decisions. I need to upgrade this. So we've got now a technical operational center staffed by quite a few people that are doing this remotely. So the benefit for us is that we're improving the value to our customers. We're fixing things a lot quicker, and the techs that are out on the road are doing things that they need to do physically. So they need to change some motors, they need to change some mechanical things. That's what they need to do. But a lot of the electronic things we're actually doing now sort of internally. So the collaboration between the call center, the technical operational center, and the field, that's the way we actually see it sort of moving forward. So there is some, systematic smarts to allocate the work, but there is a lot of that sort of collaboration. Does that answer your question, Marianne? Or?
Yeah, it definitely does. That sounds awesome. I've got Lloyd is also asking a question here. So Lloyd D'Souza, he's asking, do you offer or plan to offer a customer portal to see their assets in real time?
Yes, we do. So we actually have a 24/7 portal where our customers have access to this information. So they sort of log in. They can basically see all their sort of vertical transports, the status of the vertical transports, any issues that do occur, and they can set the priorities. They'll get a ping. They'll say, yeah, ping's list's been put into exclusive mode or special mode, or basically there's a minor defect found, or there's a major defect found, or a text actually being dispatched. So with those examples that you've seen sort of earlier, if the customers had their action board portal, they would have been aware of what's going on in the background. That's one of the things that we need to basically keep driving the market, is that the tools are there and for customers to use their tools. And they don't have to be logged in to be looking at it. You know, the systems are smart enough to say, something's happening, have a look at a little bit more information. So we do offer a portal, and that's really, really important from transparency perspective. And we know customers aren't going to be sort of hovering over their portals all the time, and that's why we send them out emails as well. So hey, we are doing some stuff. We are keeping it updated, so they are keeping a track of activities. So it's a very, very good point. A lot of good technology there. I mean, customers can actually dial into the lift and get health checks in real time. So there's a lot of smarts there that we're doing. So hope that answers your question. And the portal's called Action Board. You can actually go to Schindler, just type in Action Board, Schindler Action Board, and you can see some information there. Andrew, you've got a good question here. Do your competitors offer similar technology and service models? Well, we try and sort of focus on what we do and do it sort of really well. I know our sort of technical operational centre here is actually sort of quite unique. We're not basically seeing a lot of market sort of feedback that competitors are doing what we're doing on the level with the TOC. That is a big investment for us to actually have qualified lift technicians, working remotely to actually provide lifts. So I think we're pretty much, there are disparate models out there, but I think that where our sort of differentiation lies is, we do have a strategy. We are basically sort of pushing that strategy, and we do have an evolution of what we're going. So yeah, they do have something out there, but it's basically we're trying to sort of keep ahead of the competition and actually add new services. And I think people potentially may have remote monitoring capabilities, but we have a team of qualified people who their job is 24, just to focus on this model. And and my job and the job of the team over within Switzerland is to come up with new innovative technologies in terms of how to keep us ahead of the competition and keep doing what we're doing really well. I hope that answers your question there as well, Andrew.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Branko, and thanks for the presentation. And any other questions, please feel free to shoot them across, and we'll answer them throughout the presentation. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change tunes a little bit. So let's go to our next sort of session. So we're going to now look at digital advancements in asset management. So in particular at Unity Water. So Ivan Byrne is going to be discussing with us how we can use technology to increase field team productivity and our asset management strategies. Over the past year, Unity Water have been integrating this machine learning model where field teams can install cameras and generate footage into pipe networks, which in turn assists the teams in identifying failure works. So Ivan, I'm really looking forward to hearing your team stories and strategies. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Yeah.
Thanks, Marianne. Good morning, everyone.
And I'll just ask that you pop your camera on as well. Thanks, Ivan.
I'm seeing it. Are you not seeing it yet?
Not yet, no. Oh, there we go. Cool.
I'll toggle it. Okay, so here we go. All right, morning everyone. As Marianne said, I'm the head of asset management at Unity Water. Unity Water is a traditional water utility, but with a few differences. And today's presentation is kind of a mixed bag. I just thought I'd pull together a few of the things that we've been doing over the last few years and just talk about them individually around the benefits we're seeing from some of the projects that we've had in the digital space, but not necessarily focusing primarily on digital, but more on increasing field team productivity. So Unity Water itself, so we're a retailer distributor. So essentially we take bulk water from state government and we supply it to customers across Moreton Bay, Sunshine Coast and Noosa local authority areas. One of the good things for us is we are a relatively new organisation. We were formed through a restructure of the water industry in Southeast Queensland in 2010, which gives us lots of opportunities to, incorporate change into our operations and to do things a little bit differently, and we've been trying to do that as much as possible. In terms of asset scale, we're a large organisation, a large service area. We service from the northern suburbs of Brisbane through to Noosa and out west to Kenilworth. It's primarily water and sewage services. We do have a small recycled water business. We'd love to increase that a little bit, but right now the demand isn't there for recycled water, particularly in our region. But that is an area that we focus heavily on too, is trying to build a market for that. We also provide trade waste services, so your typical fish and chip shops and industry customers. And I guess the focus of today around field services is that we do provide 24-hour emergency services, and we are a key component in public health and safety. So as we said, our population is growing rapidly. We're probably up to around about the 850,000 residents across the region now. One of our challenges is the breadth and width of our service region. We would love a little bit more density in terms of servicing the community. Personally, I wouldn't. I'd like to have large blocks and spread out residents, but at the same time, it is a challenge for us to provide the sort of cost comparisons that we are challenged with. So as a major water utility in the Australian market, we are benchmarked annually against all our peers, I guess, as we would call them. So Sydney Water, Melbourne, all the Melbourne utilities, Yarra Valley Southeast, etc. Hunter, Water Corp, SA Water. We are, as a cohort, the major water utilities, and we're benchmarked annually, and one of the key benchmarking metrics is cost per connection. And that has been the thing that's been driving us as a business since essentially our inception in 2010. So as we spoke about, this is our challenges right now. So a lot of growth in our region. We're the fastest growing region in Australia right now. We're seeing growth rates around 2 to 3% every year. We've got some major developments on foot locally in Sunshine Coast, and there's we're about to kick off some major developments in the Moreton Bay region as well. So we will see populations grow to about 1 million people in the next couple of years. That will result in our network growing as well. So we expect to grow the network in the same time frame by about 6%. And our current infrastructure plan sees us spending nearly $1.2 billion over the next 5 years in both renewals and growth infrastructure. And one of the key things that's now really important to us is sustainability. So how do we do all of that and also look at it through a sustainability lens as well? So we have these strategic goals, and apologies if you can't see them, but essentially it's all about helping, caring for our customers, caring for our community, and caring for ourselves as an organisation as well. And operational excellence is the foundational strategy that we apply in the organisation. So how do we do essentially what we say, more with the same? So we've got some large growth happening across our network. So the challenge we have is, how do we keep our workforce at the same level to service that growth? And we've been doing that pretty successfully for a number of years now. So our field teams, it's an in-source model. So we don't have a lot of contract maintenance happening across our region. There are situations where we do specialist maintenance, yes, but in general, it's an in-source model. We have about 100 staff, field services staff at the moment. Field services workers are civil workers, essentially. They work on the pipe network primarily. And there's about 100 of those. And then in the mechanical electrical space, we have about 60 staff there. And they're primarily focused on our pump stations and treatment plants and our control systems, SCADA networks, all that sort of thing. All our work is issued via mobile devices. One of the good things from my perspective as an asset manager is we've never, as an organization, had to transition from paper to technology. When we started operating in 2010, we moved the business really quickly to technology, and we've never looked back. And since then, we've been able to improve the quality of that capability and focus pretty heavily on a user-friendly tool for use in the field. So we use EasyMax Mobile in the field, combination of toughbooks, mobile versus iPad. Again, it comes down to the preference of the field worker. Typically, the older guys are still using the toughbook. Some of the younger team members will opt for their mobile phone, etc. And ultimately, work is planned and scheduled back in IBM Maximo and issued out to the field via EasyMax. And with that large service area and large number of field workers, we have 24/7 support. We issue about 80,000 work orders to the field each year. So how do we make those guys a little bit more productive? Well, one of the things that we did when a couple of years ago now, we were looking to change the tools that we were using in the field was to look at a single application that could do everything that we wanted it to do. And the tool that we landed on was EasyMax Mobile. It's an IBM certified, essentially, mobile interface for IBM Maximo. We, as a business, focus heavily on configuration over customization. So we do not want customized applications in the organization. They're really expensive. Their whole of life cost on an application is really expensive. And our history of doing that with a previous piece of software was that, it just become very, very clunky and very, very difficult to use. So what we said was, what can we throw out and start again with? And that's what we did. We essentially removed all customization from IBM Maximo. We went back to the vanilla product with some minor configuration changes, and then we added on this tool on top. And I guess the user interface pretty easy. It's a case of following the process. Down the left-hand side, you'll be issued the job. It will appear on your tool in the field, and we've added a few minor configurations around timing of jobs. So the guys, when they get the job, they hit the start travel button. When they get to the work site, they hit the start work button, and then they stop the timer at the end of the job, and it automatically calculates the timing plus their pay. Some of the key configuration changes I wanted to call out here, which I think added a lot of value to our organization, was the ability to, first of all, do their risk assessment in the same tool. So when they arrive on site, they'll need to do a risk assessment. We've taken this through a few different revisions now to try and simplify it, but really it's a yes, no, not applicable. And it's a case of any high-risk work has the supporting procedures alongside it as well. Previously, we would have had separate systems for doing this, or offline paper-based systems, and we wanted to actually capture all this information because there's a lot of value in this information when it comes to monitoring and seeing the sort of risks that our guys are being subjected to in the field. On top of that, we did a lot of work in embedding our mapping capability into the tool. As asset manager, I'm really, really heavily drive good data collection in the field. Not only do I want to know which pipe has failed, but I want to know where along the pipe it has failed. So we get the guys to actually tell us that information through the interface. On top of that, we spent a lot of time getting all of the information relating to our assets. So if you think about our assets that we have out in the field, we have pipes and pumps and all that sort of thing. All of those assets have some information that exists somewhere else in the organization. It might be a drawing, it might be a manual, it might be a procedure, etc., etc. So what we do is in our document management system, we tag all of those documents to the asset. And then when the guys are in the field and they're working on a specific asset, they can just flick onto the, it's called the technical library screen, and it will pull back any documents that are relevant to that asset they're working on. So if it's a case of, a maintenance manual, they can pull that through. If it's a case of trying to find the drawing to try and get a bit more information out, they can do that as well. That's been whilst it might look like a pretty straightforward piece of software, the back end to that is essentially 1 million documents that somebody's had to go through and tag them. The other tool that we've been using of late is a valve tracing tool. So again, for those of you that are not familiar with the water industry, when you get a water break, you have to isolate the water. That's quite a complex bit of work historically, and in a lot of organizations, it's essentially a case of pulling up your GIS, finding where the nearest isolation valve is, and start turning valves to see what happens. We wanted to take some of that guesswork away and try and speed up the process, as well as capture the information that we needed around which valves have been exercised and if they were working or not working, etc. Because you will find quite a few valves in field that are either seized or are passing. So what the guys do is they identify the area of the network that they want to isolate. So they stick these flag on here to identify that they want to isolate this pipe. The system then goes off and tells them which valves they need to close to get that isolation to work. And you can see the little red valves here. It's telling you to go and switch off these valves. This is really important for us because as an organization, we need to capture every single property here that's been impacted by this outage. So then that will store that information for us rather than the guys having to manually store it. And then finally, we get this outage area once they've completed the isolation, which we then publish to our website as an outage area. So not only is that helping our customers, but it's also helping our field crews to isolate the right parts of the network, isolate only the parts of the network that they need to, because water networks are quite complex at times, with water being able to go to different directions. And also from an asset management perspective, I'm also capturing the how often these valves are getting exercised, so that if I am planning a valve exercising program, I know that there's probably no need to go and exercise this valve because it got exercised as part of an isolation a few weeks previous. And then one of the tools that Mary hinted at was quite a recent thing for us. We've partnered with a company called Pipe AI to develop some machine learning and artificial intelligence for our sewer pipe network. So I guess a little bit of background on sewer pipes. Sewer pipes typically are gravity. So essentially the sewage or wastewater flows under gravity, which allows us to actually get cameras in there, so we can isolate those pipes for short periods of time to put cameras inside, and we send the cameras down the pipe. We collect some video footage as the camera is moving along the pipe. The inspectors are sitting in a van and identifying all of the defects that they can see. So there's nothing smart about it other than the camera goes down the pipe and somebody manually identifies all the defects that they can see. Typically then that video footage gets sent to somebody in my team, who then does a further review to say, okay, well, based on the defects that we've seen, how big a deal is that? And then we turn that into intervention programs, whether it's a case of just some minor maintenance is required, or whether it's a case of we need to do some major capital works on this asset. So there's a lot of work spent capturing the information, storing the information, and reviewing it. And we worked with a company called, and this is typically what you'll see on the inside of a pipe. You'll see some of these cracks and defects. One of the bigger issues that we have, particularly in this part of the world, is tree root intrusion, which comes through the joints in the pipe. And the system collates all of that, and then based on the number of defects per meter, etc., we can essentially assign a severity. So we partnered with a company called Pipe AI, and we said to them, if we were able to provide you with thousands of videos for the internals of these pipes, and with that we were able to tell you that for every defect that you see, this is the severity of that defect, and this is one of those formal reports that we get from this process. Could you train a model to automatically identify the defects? And the answer was yes. And we spent quite a bit of time working with these guys. They trained the model. We helped to essentially verify that model and also make it a little bit more accurate. So we had one of my key specialists reviewing each time the computer found a defect, giving it a yes or a no as to whether it had found the right defect and classified it appropriately, and also reviewing the ones that it missed, to a point that we got it to 99% accurate. And we're slowly starting to roll that out across our business now, not necessarily in the upfront manual defect allocation, but more in the review piece. So the guys will still send the camera down. They will still identify the defect in field, but the piece at the back end, which historically was done by engineers, is now automated, as in, once we see that video, we will verify what they found. The computer will verify what they found against what it found, and then we'll move it through a structured process around maintenance or renewal. So that was one piece of the Pipe AI product. So it's called the review piece, and that's really around the inspection, the automation of the inspection program. We do have a bit of a vision with this partner that there'll be a point at which we would love to get an autonomous robot into these pipes and it automatically classify as it's traversing our sewer network. But there's lots of challenges with that right now, but we're working through those. The other piece of the puzzle for us is, well, how do you actually identify those assets for inspection? And we've got some pretty good models around that, but they are pretty resource intensive. So it's a case of getting all that information from field crews every time there's a failure, putting that into a big database and trying to find relationships between why did this asset fail, and is it a case that these assets are failing because there's been trees planted above them, or is it a case that there's a certain type of asset that is more prone to these types of defects, and how could we predict which ones may be candidates for inspection? So what we did was, again, we worked with Pipe AI to build a risk model. We take lots of different information through, again, a machine learning model to try and identify the assets that are most likely to have a defect, to then inform our inspection crews to go and actually verify if those defects exist, to then go through the review process and find their way into a maintenance plan or a renewal plan or a monitoring plan. So for us, yeah, we're working heavily with this organization right now. We have partnered with them, and we see this as being our end-to-end pipe asset management solution. It's really about, investing in the right assets for our customers, but also about making our field crews much more productive, because we have entire crews that are focused on pipe inspections. And whilst it's good to get information that tells us that pipes are in good condition, it's not really useful use of their time. We would prefer to have a much more targeted program whereby there is a 80% chance that when they go and inspect this asset, they're going to find something which then informs us to do something beyond that. And then finally, wary of time. The other one I think I just threw in here is, again, another piece of work that we've started doing probably in the last year, which is our laser scanning and photogrammetry inspections of our assets. Again, think about traditional inspection programs. You bring in a concrete specialist, you bring in a corrosion specialist, you bring in all these people to inspect your assets, and they give you a report that says you need to do this, this, and this. And that is quite common in the water sector. We do need to fly specialists in from across the country. In the COVID time that we're living, that's not necessarily something we can do. So what we do is we bring in an organization to scan our assets, and then there's an online portal where we upload all of that information for our external parties, wherever they are, to then do their inspections and to do their checks and provide us with their reports to tell us what we need to do. This probably started maybe 18 months ago. We were seeing a little bit of pushback on it originally, but then as soon as it became difficult for people to travel, this is the way forward for us, and we do this regularly perhaps on a weekly basis at this point. We're collecting information like this, and our goal obviously is to take this through to the full digital twin eventually. And right now we're doing that in small cases. We'll take these scans for something that we're going to do a major upgrade on, and then we'll push it through a 3D model and then spit out the final model at the back end for construction. So with a couple of minutes left, just I guess some of the key learnings from me. I've been in this space for quite a while now, but I guess one of the key learnings we see, particularly in the water sector, is that technology exists to solve problems. Just be wary of solutions looking for problems to solve. So there's no end of organizations pushing their solutions, but they don't necessarily have a problem that they need to solve. So for me, it's all about look at the problem first of all and find a technology solution to it. It is important to measure the time up front before you solve some of these problems. When we're dealing with public money, we are always challenged on our benefits. So for us, we've got to spend that little bit of time up front seeing how big is this problem and is the solution going to actually solve it and also provide a clear benefit. So, the classic example for us is, there's quite a push on to use drones to do inspections for us, but when you bring in an organization to give you a very detailed drone inspection and supporting report, essentially what you're trying to replace is a one-man crew doing a visual inspection, which is not very cost effective. You'll see lots of organizations pushing this view that you can have your mobile phone and multiple apps on your mobile phone and you just flick between them. We don't see that working very well with our teams. Ideally, you want to embed as much of the capability that they need in the field into one application. It seems to work better for us. It means, they follow a structured process. If we have multiple apps, you got to expect them to jump out of one, jump into another, come back into another. It doesn't work for me, particularly as someone who receives a lot of that data in the back end. Cloud opens up multiple opportunities. I'll say that for one very specific reason. It means I don't have to deal as much with the IT team as I would have had otherwise. This does allow us to quickly stand up some capability that we wouldn't have been able to do previously. And then one of the things you just need to always push up to your organization is that automation doesn't always remove people. It makes people more productive and it focuses on value add. Can't imagine there's any organization who doesn't have a large maintenance backlog. So automation will help you get on top of the backlog. And there sometimes is pushes to remove people once you automate, but that's not necessarily the right thing to do. And that's me. Any questions?
Thanks for that, Ivan. Yeah, anyone, any questions that you have, please feel free to submit them now. Or as I was saying earlier, you can also submit them post-presentation and we can get back to you. So that was an awesome presentation. I think it's really cool to hear about all the, I don't know, for myself at least, I geek out the second someone says machine learning, which sometimes is a bit faster than, I get a bit more excited than I should, but it's really cool to hear also around, the future work and potential that it really, that the industry kind of has, especially in asset management. Trevor has, I'm just going through questions now. Oh, I've got a thank you from Trevor. Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably just note with the machine learning. Yes, I've presented you with some examples of where we're using machine learning. We're using machine learning quite a bit, and the exciting thing for me is I now have data scientists in my team, which historically, even 5 years ago, was very difficult to create a business case for. And one of the other solutions which we haven't cracked yet, but we're very close, is we're using machine learning to try and predict where wet weather is going to hit. And if you say that to someone in the Bureau of Meteorology, they will say, no, that's not how it works. It's all about weather patterns and mathematical models, etc. Whereas we've actually shown that, yes, that's true, but 80 to 90% of the time, if you use historical wet weather, you can predict where future wet weather is going to go, because wet weather patterns technically, in our region, they technically follow these similar paths. So if we see something on the bomb radar, we can sort of predict with 80% certainty that it's going to land over in this part of our network. And for us in the sewerage space, it's really important that we do all the things that we need to do before that wet weather hits to make sure that we reduce the likelihood of major sewerage spill. But again, we haven't fully cracked that one yet, but we are looking into it.
Yeah, and I think we'll get there eventually. But no, that's really interesting, and it's quite. There's a lot of different sort of elements that really need to be taken into account. So it's awesome to hear kind of the story and the work that you and the team have been doing. Awesome. Well, that kind of brings us to time, to be honest. So as a reminder to everyone, these presentations are going to be available on demand, so post-webinar. So you'll get an email link, I think probably later today, tomorrow at the latest. So yeah, thank you again, though, for everyone for tuning in, and thanks you to Branko and Ivan for sharing your insights and strategies. Two very different presentations, but I think that's kind of the scope of what field services is. There's so many different elements and aspects. So it's great to hear everyone kind of, you kind of submitting questions, comments, and also your stories. So just as a reminder, this webinar is very much a little sort of teaser prior to our field service management event later this year. So for those of you who haven't checked it out yet, you can please feel free to visit the field service management website from our team at IQPC. You can see how you can take part in our in-person event later this year, as we discuss together where the future of field service delivery is heading throughout these times. So I'm very excited for what's to come. I hope you are too. But yeah, until then, thanks everyone for tuning in, and stay safe until next time. See ya.